let's go to item number 9B, adopt the ordinance to amend the Seaside Municipal Code, adding chapter 9.05, prohibiting excessive solicitation in the city street medians and other places, and amending chapter 9.20, overnight occupancy of vehicles on public property, 9.21, storage of personal property on city property, and 10.32, stopping, standing, parking. The proposed ordinance amendment is not subject to California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, pursuant to section 15061B3 of the CEQA guidelines. This is the first reading. It will be a roll call vote, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. For this item, I'm going to start with Dan Mewis, Assistant City Manager.
Good evening again, Honorable Mayor, members of City Council. Dan Mewis, Assistant City Manager, and we are going to have a short presentation on some proposed amendments to a couple different ordinances. We're going to be looking at chapters 9.05, 9.20, and 9.21, as well as 10.32 with some proposed amendments. So why does this matter to the city? These amendments are going to promote public health and safety, ensure accessible, safe public spaces for all of our residents. They do still protect our constitutional rights, and it responds to the community concerns regarding unsafe or aggressive solicitation, the accumulation of personal property, and overnight vehicle occupancy. So the new chapter we're requesting is 9.05 for aggressive solicitation. And this prohibits unsafe and aggressive solicitation in key public spaces, which include the medians, traffic lanes, near financial institutions, driveways, and after dark. It does protect free speech rights with time and place and manner restrictions. And it supports our ongoing support for pedestrian, traffic, and commercial safety. Chapter 9.20, overnight vehicle occupancy. We're just cleaning this up a little bit. Right now, we're proposing changing the time that you cannot be in your vehicle on public property from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. In the current code, it is from 10 p.m. to 9, or in the current code is 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. That's a typo on there. Because we're just changing the 1 hour from 10 to 9 p.m. And then it aligns with the state and legal standards as well as our neighboring communities. So when we look at chapter 9.21, we have some new definitions. It identifies unattended versus abandoned property, which is more clearly clarified, and it defines the trash and debris and bulky items. It outlines what is considered excessive or unlawful storage, and then it does state the essential items for survival and protected, which we do protect unless unsafe. Those items tend to be driver's license, social security cards, other, smaller items that can be kept on one's person. 9.21, the storage enforcement. It prohibits storage that blocks ADA access with entrances. Those are, people that are big bulky items on a lot of storefronts, getting in and out. Enables the cleanup of public property with our notice. We are noticing is 72 hours right now, and we're going, I think, to 48 hours is what the new regulations require or allow. Outlines notice impoundment and disposal procedures, and health and safety risks can also trigger immediate removal where notice isn't required. When we 10.32 in the parking amendments, right now we currently have a 4-hour fixed limit at our three parks, Catino Park, Laguna Grande, and Roberts Lake. The new regulations will allow for the city manager to authorize set times for any public facility. So depending on times and situations, if we see that there are issues at one park over another, it can change from 4 hours to 2 hours. It could be really up to the discretion of the city manager to try and curb some of the instances where we have with the extended parking times. So some of the next steps, if adopted, we're going to train the staff on the enforcement and notification requirements that have been updated. We'll coordinate with outreach teams and service providers, and then we'll install updated signage in regulated areas. And we'll put out public awareness campaigns and communications just to make sure the community is aware of our new adopted ordinances. So in summary, reduces unsafe and aggressive solicitation, clarifies rules for storage and overnight occupancy, maintains constitutional protections, and improves the quality of life and safety for all residents. So the recommendation is to introduce the ordinance, waive the full reading, and read by title only, and set the ordinance for adoption at the next regular city council meeting. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Council Member Garcia-Rozola, then Council Member Miller.
Thank you. When we're talking about aggressive or unsafe solicitation, what do we mean by that? How are we defining that?
So those individuals that are continuously coming up to people with the constant begging. You know, it's not necessarily those that are sitting there with a sign. It's, you know, being a little bit more aggressive.
I have the language here. If you want me to read that for you, that will help. Aggressive and intrusive solicitation may include approaching or following pedestrians, using abusive language, making unwanted physical contact, or blocking pedestrian and vehicle traffic. So that's
Perfect.
specifically in that
Thank
word.
you. Sure. And we're saying we are training staff on enforcement and notice requiring. Who is staff?
So that would be Public Works.
Okay, let's define that a little bit better. Outreach teams, who coordinate with outreach teams and service providers. Who are the outreach teams?
Would be Family and Community Support Program.
Okay. And launch public awareness and communications campaign. How and when would these be launched?
So we'll work closely with the city clerk's office to develop a plan and push it out as frequent as necessary.
Thank you.
Jump in. He asked you about who would be doing enforcement. You said something about Public Works.
The enforcement, he asked me about the training. Who would we be training?
Okay, and it's just Public Works, no one else?
Public Works, PD would get some of that training too, yeah.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, is there a certain area of this city that we see more aggressive solicitation than other areas?
From my experience, I would say that they are more on the entrances into the cities. Coming up on Fremont tends to be a little bit more prolific, if you will, where I'm seeing it. There could be some other areas that I'm not aware of, but I am seeing it generally on Fremont on either end of the city limits.
You know, I've seen some communities that have warning signs there, no aggressive solicitation. Some cities say no solicitation there. Has the city considered putting up, if we adopt this ordinance, some sort of sign that says we do not allow aggressive solicitation there?
Yeah, we'll definitely look into that.
I'm not saying to do it or not. I'm just saying, have we thought about it? Or
It's been part of the discussion, and whether or not we move forward with that, that's still up for once this ordinance gets passed.
very good. And in regards to the parking time, that the city manager would have the authorization to change the time, so in the hypothetical that we go put up signs and we would put up signs, I presume, and then the city manager then changes, maybe not the city manager, but future city managers or whatnot, change the time. And then we're, replacing signs all the time, not all the time, but we're taking down the signs and replacing them. That's not, how do we get around that?
I mean, that is a possibility. I think these are some situations that we would see that some parks or areas tend to have visitors that frequent them longer than others. So we want to kind of address those concerns, but we also wanted to give the city manager the autonomy to address them as they came up. So we didn't have to constantly come back and change the ordinance for specific locations. So right now, the 4-hour parking works well in a lot of areas. There is, you know, a couple specific areas that I think we need to look at to try and get that down.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, on the 48 hours notice related to, I forget where, but you said it was 72 hours and we reduced it to 48 hours.
I did make a mistake. It's stated at 72 hours for the tagging.
So it's not.
It's not.
So it's being,
It's in line with the model ordinance Governor Newsom released at 72 hours.
oh, okay, so nothing's being reduced. So just out of curiosity, legally, can we reduce it? Because if someone doesn't, my concern, it cannot reduce it. Is that a true statement? It has to be 72 hours.
That's currently, yes, I believe I'll defer to the city attorney for that.
And you're,
So I'm
no, but
asking
where you, no, it's a good
Yeah.
question, but where are you asking 72 hours for what, on the street?
for
The tagging.
the tagging
Okay.
of let's say, a wide range of things that are out there that are negatively, some people would consider negatively impacting the businesses, et
Yeah.
cetera.
City Attorney, did you want to answer?
Thank you for that question, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, members of the public. 72 hours is the most legally defensible hours. Could we reduce it? Yes, we might be able to reduce it. However, we're more subject to potential litigation. The shorter time, we took the best of, we did shorten the time of storage of the property. So it went from 90 days down to 60 days.
Okay, so just for clarity, so let's say sometimes it takes a day for staff to be notified. I'm sorry, sometimes it takes a day or 2 days to be cited for whatever reasons. So once I get that citation, the person, excuse me, has 3 days to vacate that area. Is that a true statement?
It's not when the individual receives the citation. So the notice goes on the items. So if there's 3 shopping carts and it gets noticed, it's 72 hours from the time that notice gets placed on that item.
Which is 3 days.
Yeah.
And then we're doing this, does a lot of good things, I think, as far as for safety issues. My concern is when we sometimes create ordinances, it's hard to, the consistency in enforcement is vital to success of the program. The police department or public works or whoever the leadership is in this, are we convinced that we can better monitor and enforce the laws as written?
Yes, I do believe we can. They've been doing well with the tagging as it has been over the years since we started it. There are some tweaks that can be made, and I think that this is giving the staff more tools in their tool belt to be able to handle that.
Through the mayor. I'm sorry, I was going to add to that.
Yeah, that was it.
And I just wanted to add to that the city attorney recently completed training for both PD and Public Works. And if this ordinance is adopted, we'll go through that training once again with the new ordinance in hand.
Anyone else? I had a couple of questions. When we get to the 72-hour tagging, that's not new, is it?
No,
Okay, somehow we got into, and I'm not faulting anyone, I'm just saying somehow we allowed that to talk as though that's new. And we need to be telling the public that's not new. Okay, I guess we're committing to doing a better job. Is that what you're saying?
sometimes it doesn't happen, I think, as frequently as we would like it to. But we have been doing it for years.
What I know, I'm just saying the ordinance, the standard's been 72. So I'm really trying to understand what this is about and what is the new thing so public can understand what we're trying to do, right? I I hear it all the time about people standing in the medians. And so when I think it was Councilmember Garcia, I was only talk to you about it, about aggressiveness and this and that. You said, well, I'm not sure as long as the person is not banging up against the car, as long as they're not bothering you, then it seemed to be okay. Because I seen a guy, it don't make a difference, man or female. I seen a person sitting down in the median blowing bubbles. And everybody that drove by on that little median on Fremont had to be afraid of them going one way or the other into traffic. So this is not about, just stopping someone asking for some money so they can get something to eat. We all understand that. But at a certain point, this is about the health and safety of this community and the residents of this community. So I want to highlight what we're doing to improve the lives, to include how we're going to help these individuals get to the services that the county is providing, in this community, that is provided on this peninsula. That's really what I want to highlight. That's what I'm trying to get to is something along those lines, and then we talked about in the parks. We just had two people, community members earlier, talk about how it's hard to find parking in the parks in this parking lot because people are parking in these areas extended amount of time. We're talking about hours. And we understand some of the situations, but our community is saying fix these things. And so I don't see it as though, it's one or the other. I don't see how we're trying to balance the person's ability to stay on public property as long as they want. Now, the law says you can lay down, you can get your sleep and, things like that. We understand that. But when you go through Catino Park, I think the parking lot only has about, what is it? But
11.
12.
Well-
See, I was gonna say 16, right? But it's 11 parking slots. And if you are parking work trucks in there, where am I parking at? Where's someone parking at, dropping off their kids to play on those new swing sets in the merry-go-round? And so I'm looking. That's where my support is trying to go. Is how do we protect the rights of all residents to be able to frequent and enjoy these public spaces, to include the parks by the water and other places in this community. And so, City Manager, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, this ordinance is trying to accomplish just those things. We hear frequent volume of the panhandling in the right of way, the unsafeness for the individual and the associated traffic. And then we're also experiencing significant issues in several parks that are limited with public spaces, and how we address these challenges fairly and accurately. This ordinance provides the tools for PD and Public Works to address those.
And I just want, if I can, I would just say, and speak, I think this ordinance speaks to our staff actually trying to assist the people that need it, not just, because it's not about punishment. This is not punishment. But I'm saying in this ordinance, it also talks to putting some so-called man hours behind how do we help people find the resources that are in this county and on this peninsula.
Correct, Mayor. This gives us another opportunity, another touch point to work with those individuals and direct them to the services.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Just a couple little more questions. One, to clarify, when I thought I heard Mr. Muse said 48 hours, that's why I referred to the 48 hours. I did think it was 72. Just for my clarity, at the intersection of Canyon Del Rey and they're on the medians, can they do that or not? Because some said aggressive and some said, but I didn't, the way I read it, I thought I read it, was you can't be on the medians for safety reasons.
If this ordinance is adopted and passed, the answer is they cannot be there.
So you could be at you cannot be on the medians, but you can be by Home Depot is okay.
It's in the right of way. So anywhere on the right of way, you will not be able to be.
Right. Oh, so even in Home Depot by the stop and light would not be okay.
That's not, we don't own that section there anymore.
Okay. So medians are not okay. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Councilmember Garcia Elzo.
Thank you. To clarify, it's an unsafe and and aggressive behavior, right? So anything that is deemed unsafe and aggressive.
No.
No, that's what we're putting in the ordinance. It's unsafe and aggressive. Yes.
Just,
So Mayor Pro Tem,
just to be real clear, so, yeah, so if I'm being passive and nice guy collecting money, is it okay or not okay? Or does it have to be aggressive? Just yes, like either yes or no. Can I be on the medium? Yes or no?
Not on the median. No.
Okay, just want to be real clear. Okay, I just want to.
Yeah.
Thanks.
well, you want, I was going to ask the city attorney to weigh in, but if you want to ask a question, maybe she'll roll that in too.
My only question is, can we remove the word aggressive?
You can't be on the.
Okay, well, all right, that's, yeah, any other, okay, go ahead, city attorney, just.
Yes, thank you so much. No, this ordinance specifically with respect to solicitation in median strips, intersections, and active public roadways is inherently hazardous and is prohibited. So that's that. And with respect to aggressive and intrusive, that language is in there specifically for some of the other areas of the city in order to have the conduct and keep it as conduct related as opposed to content related. That's why the word aggressive is in there, so that it's not the person who is passively handing out flyers, it's the person who chases you down the street and hands you flyers. So there's definitions in this ordinance that specifically respond to what aggressive is, what solicitation is.
So we're not, right, so we're not saying someone, I'm getting to a better example on aggressiveness. We're not saying someone on the sidewalk can't ask you for $1. We're saying they can't chase you down, they can't badger you, can't block you, can't, put their hand up to stop you from going around. Of course, they can't touch you, right? But I'm just, giving the public the example is we're not trying to infringe anybody's freedom of speech, so to speak, to ask for a couple of dollars to eat. That's not what this is about.
Exactly. This has very, very carefully drafted definitions of what that aggressive is. It could mean intentional touching or causing physical contact. Somebody puts their hand out, touches you. It could be causing fear in a person. That is something that fear of bodily harm to somebody else. Intentionally blocking a safe or free passageway. So you can't block a sidewalk, for example, as part of that. Just using sidewalk as an example of a public pedestrian or vehicle right-of-way area. So there are several other definitions in here, but the idea is to specifically define those as much as possible.
And those definitions are in the staff report.
They are in both, yes.
Yeah, and you're reading them from somewhere. I just want the public to understand, you're just not making this off the top of your head. It's written down somewhere, right?
Yes, it is written down and it's in the ordinance that is attached to the staff report.
Which the council has read, so, but we're asking good questions because what we're trying to make sure is that no one leaves here thinking that we're trying to stop people from asking for something to help make their life better. Right? That's not what we're talking about here. Okay. All right. Let's.
Just had one more.
Yes, of
if you
course.
don't mind. I'm wondering if maybe I can ask a question of the police chief in regards to this.
That's what I'm right.
Chief, thank you so much. Do you see this ordinance as something that we can, that is sustainable, that is something that the police department can, I guess, manage properly? Or how do you see this ordinance working for us?
I think this is very powerful. I actually was part of the discussion early on of trying to get this moving forward, because as it stands now, when somebody is on a center median in an unsafe manner, just by being there, our hands are tied. We have no legal authority to do anything unless they step off that center median into the street to collect something from a car. Then we can intervene at that point. But at this point, we have nothing. This allows us to keep our community safe. It gives us some tools when we're called to address some of these issues. And in terms of the aggression, that does happen. It happened at the police department just in the last couple of weeks where we had to ask a gentleman to leave the police department because he was harassing people coming inside, being very aggressive, using vulgar language. Freedom of speech, we can't do much, but if you're trying to solicit money from somebody, that's going to create an issue. We have some authority at this point. So I'm very supportive of this ordinance.
Thank you. And in regards to the median, do you see this as a warning that you would remove the person from the median, or do you see this as a ticketable offense, which I believe would then be a city ordinance, if I'm not mistaken? I guess the state law doesn't speak to this if they're on our median. So how would the enforcement go? I guess is my first part of the question.
I think just like we do everything else, if this is passed, ultimately it will be education, trying to educate the people who are here of what the laws are, being fair, move into a warning if we have to give a warning, but ultimately citations. And really the best answer is it depends. We'll use our discretion. Everybody's different. Their behavior, conduct is different. So we'll have to evaluate that on a case by case situation. But the intention is just to have some ability to stop the unsafe behavior and certainly not have people being aggressive with our residents.
I'm totally in favor of that, and I do appreciate this ordinance. This is just my last concern is, or my last question is, if we approach somebody and tell them to move, and they move, and then they come back to the same location, and we're playing this cat and mouse game with the police department and using our resources for that. Do you anticipate that being a problem? Or what methods would we use to kind of make sure that the person is not hanging out there coming back?
With this ordinance, we would actually have legal authority to take legal action that could lead up to citations, could lead up to potentially arrests. It would give us some ability to do something beyond the cat and mouse game that currently exists and has forever. Is what we do today is we go out, we politely ask people to leave. Most people will do so, and within 10, 20, 30 minutes, they're back over there, and it's happening day in and day out. This gives us some authority to actually take some enforcement action.
Thank you very much for those answers, and sorry I didn't tell you in advance, but I appreciate you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No problem. Thank you. Public comment is open.
Members of the public in the chamber, please approach the podium. Members of the public on Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature or dial *9 if you're calling from a phone. Carla Lobo, you now have the floor to make your public comment.
Thank you. My first question is regards to public spaces. Does this include the library and in front of City Hall? As a concerned, committed resident for equity and dignity and public health, I respectfully oppose the current draft of the proposed ordinance due to its disproportionate and punitive impact on our unhoused community members. While public safety and cleanliness is important, this ordinance does not address the root cause of homelessness, poverty, or the lack of shelter access. Instead, it criminalizes survival behaviors such as storing personal belongings or resting in a public space when no alternatives are made available. These changes, including the addition of vague definitions like trash, debris, and the expansion of impound authority without meaningful safeguards, increases the risk of trauma, property loss, and displacement for the most vulnerable neighbors. The ordinance claims to create a safer and more accessible city, yet it does so by creating deeper exclusion for those already experiencing structural inequities. Equity requires that policies be implemented with an understanding of unequal starting points, not through enforcement that further penalizes those who lack housing. The sweeping powers to remove belongings, including items vital to health and safety like tents, clothing, or medical items, will cause irreversible harm and may expose the city to legal risk under Martin, Boyce, and ADA protections. I urge the City Council to either reject or significantly revise this ordinance. Instead, I ask that the city prioritize real solutions, expand shelter options, volunteer storage programs, public restrooms and showers, and community-based outreach that upholds human dignity. We must remember that our public spaces are for everyone, and that housing, not punishment, is the answer to homelessness. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you for your comments. Elena Mathakayas, you now have the floor to make your public comment.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I live off of Kimball, and I have to walk down to Hilby and Schaefer every morning. Is there any way that the city can put speed buttons on Kimball? Because people race up and down that hill like they're freaking crazy.
Thank you for your comments. Diane Nielsen, you now have the floor to make your public comment.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council. Again, I wanted to express my support for keeping people from staying on medians and asking for handouts, not because they're asking for handouts, but it's just such an extremely dangerous and distracting situation. And of course, those people will need, when they are offered money or whatever, food, they are going to have to step out into the street. They can't reach far enough over to safely accept food or money. And I appreciate that that is not going to happen anymore or is going to be alleviated. And I've called many, many times, and I definitely think this will make things safer when people are not allowed to spend time on the medians. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. The caller ending in 2287, you now have the floor to make your public comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
This is Peter Kaiser, and I think we have to be very careful. I didn't hear the whole presentation, but we have to be very careful about this because in the previous administration with the Attorney General Merrick Garland, he was actually going on purpose and sending law enforcement and arresting people who were praying quietly, even singing in front of abortion clinics. And sometimes these people were in their 80s, and he was actually having them arrested and jailed and taken into court and put in jail for, I think it was actually for years. And sometimes the people from the clinics, abortion clinics, would come out and bother these people. And then the people praying there were the ones who got arrested. So we have to be very careful, because for the last 4 years till December, there was a great misuse of law enforcement and the FACE Act. So we have to be very careful on this. And in England, they even have punishment if you're praying silently in front of an abortion clinic. They were actually arresting people for that. They're criminalizing this freedom of assembly. So we have freedom of assembly in a proper manner with politeness and gentleness and love to protect the lives of the preborn babies in those clinics. So we have to make sure that's taken care of very carefully. And I'm sorry I missed the previous meeting. I was over at the prayer vigil. So we want to make sure, we hope we didn't pass that very restrictive bill ordinance for the second reading on almost restricting guns and ammunition stores out of the whole city, except for a few blocks on Fremont Street. We hope that didn't pass, and I have been contacting city council members to follow John Lott's book. It's called, very good research around the United States. It's called More Guns, Less Crime. So the gun stores are not a hazard to health and safety. Guns in the hands of responsible citizens. That's why we don't speak the King's English and we're not part of the British Commonwealth, because we had responsible citizens with the militia protecting this country. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Members of the public in the chamber, please approach the podium. Members of the public on Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature or dial *9 if you're calling from a phone. Mayor, no other members of the public have come forward to make public comment.
Thank you. Are there any more questions or comments? I did have one or two quick ones. Just to the city attorney, you know, it's people keep talking about violating people's rights and all that. My understanding is when you read this, this is in compliance with the latest Supreme Court ruling and it's well within good law, right? I mean, are we taking anything away from anybody?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that question, and to everybody in the public and the city council. No, we're not taking anything from anybody. In fact, our existing ordinance is just being clarified to be consistent with the most recent case law of the Grants Pass case, and also the Ninth Circuit cases regarding personal property. That's where some of those definitions are coming from, is from the Kincaid, Garcia, and Levon case, which is current good law with respect to personal property. So it just adds an extra layer of clarification to ensure that everybody is clear on what our staff, public, everybody is clear on what is the definition of what types of property.
Okay, thank you. I know you and the city manager and his team and the police chief worked on this, and I just, you know, sometimes it's hard for me to listen and hear how people think that you guys would not do the right things and somehow you guys would actually put something illegal, you know, to the best of your knowledge, you know, on pieces of paper and ask the council to adopt it, right? So I come here thinking that you're going to do your job. It's legally sound, it's well thought out, and it's for us to, you know, and the public to ask questions and punch holes into it. But to just assume that you guys would not be within legal bounds is just, it's hard for me to do that. So what is the will of the council if I haven't done that already?
I'll make a motion to approve 9B.
Second.
It's been probably moved and second to approve 9B, staff recommendation. This is the first reading and it's a roll call vote. Clerk will call the roll.
Council and Agency Member Miller,
Aye.
Council and Agency Member Burks,
Aye.
Council and Agency Member Garcia Arizola,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem and Vice Chair Pacheco, Mayor and Chair Oglesby.
Aye.
Your motion passes unanimously.